Hey, we're back.
Welcome to the 6th official outing of the Construction Collective, a show that occupies that strange hinterland somewhere between the original Top Gear and the Three Stooges. I'm your host, Mark Anthony, and that handsome devil. Now, I never know whether you're to my left or my right, but by my side is Peter Haddock. And we have to start with a small apology. We generally like to produce these shows on a monthly basis, but May rather got away with this, Peter, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. Goodness me. What a month. Because we were allowed to go outside, Mark, for the first time. And boy, oh boy, it was like a tidal wave of site visits, of things that we needed to do, getting out there, talking to human beings, rather than talking to ourselves and hoping that human beings are listening, which they have been. So that's a good thing, Mark. But wow, oh wow, what an amazing period May was. And you're going to see some of the exciting things that we've done, of course, with that period, and being able to had to bump the show for a small reason as well, Mark, didn't we? So
yeah, we're going to come back to that, but I do know just how much we've got to get through this evening, so let's crack on with the show. We're going to start with what is probably the hottest topic in the plant world right now, and that is fuel. There's a huge amount of discussion about electric machines and hydrogen machines and biofuel machines and the eradication of red diesel. But before we worry about future fuels, we kind of need to take care of the fuel of today. We've got to wait, I guess, waiting in our green room as we speak to discuss this subject in greater depth. But first, our roving reporter, Mr. Haddock, has been out and about to have a look. Here's what he found out.
Hi, I'm Peter Haddock, and normally you'd see me on construction sites, but today I'm in the laboratory full of contaminated fuel. All around me, we see contaminated fuel. In this tank here, we've got contaminated fuel. In this laboratory around me, contaminated fuel. In the industry, all around us, contaminated fuel. But this thing, folks, is something that's going to help prevent contaminated fuel causing havoc with the industry's plant and machinery all across the UK. You want to find out more about contaminated fuel and how we're going to stop it and turn it all around? Well, here's the time to get with me on the Fuel Active series of videos where I'm going to be talking elimination of contamination.
Now, before I introduce you, Mike, was there some contaminated fuel there, Peter?
You know what, Mark? I actually was waiting for Mike. Fortunately, he's on time today. And I said to the team, I'm waiting for Mike to finish an important call with a major manufacturer. Basically, let me do a bit of a trailer. So, you know what? This is how we roll with the construction. Just get on with it and do some fun. But yes, contaminated fuel, I've known about it for a long time. Used to do a lot of work with filters and things like that, and obviously a lot of work to say, look, people get genuine parts and things, but you can't do anything if you've got contaminated fuel, Mark. And I've learned a lot about that throughout the series, and we're going to be launching the series next week, where I'm doing laboratory coats, tests in the laboratory, talking to Mike, and we're even going on site for welfare to look after ourselves, Mark. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But you've got Mike on now. I don't need to talk about this product. He invented it.
Yeah, good evening, Mike. I'm glad you could tear yourself away from the from all that contaminated fuel for this evening. Before we get onto the system itself and how it works and everything else, have you got any sort of facts or figures on what contaminated fuel costs the plant industry?
Yeah, to be honest, guys, and thanks for inviting me on the show. It's really a privilege. But costs, will vary dramatically from being just an inconvenience to literally costing thousands of pounds. And the latest stage 5 engines require extremely clean fuel, and whereas a block filter will be fairly inexpensive. That's compared to a damaged injector or fuel pump, and then you add to the downtime. So it's very difficult to give a broad cost, because the industry covers such a wide range of equipment, from a small generator which we install in up to the big Komatsu mining trucks, running 95-litre engines. So it does depend, and it's surprising in the industry how many people don't actually really understand the cost of the contamination to them and the business.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other thing that's hard to ascertain, and you've just mentioned some applications there, is the fact that there is that trickle-down effect. You know, if, as you just said, if you've got a blocked filter and it takes down a mining shovel, it's not just the mining shovel that's stopped; it's the dump trucks that have stopped, possibly the crusher that runs with it. There is a domino effect right the way through the process, isn't there?
Oh, exactly. You know, if you look at a quarry and you've got the crushers and you've got a train of machines. You know, if one of those machines goes down, you know, all 5 or 6 machines can all be out of operation, and at the same time, you know, the system was developed very early on with it was to do with water pumps, a company called Hydrana, and it was simply for a water pump. And most people, although that's a fairly simple piece of equipment, if you're trying to empty a trench to do some work and the pump stops, that can have a big impact on any site and overrun of works. You know, if there's very time schedules.
So we've seen Peter holding the device itself. It looked like it's somebody he'd just taken out of the Ann Summers shop window. But how does it actually work, and how does it differ from traditional fuel filters?
Well, you know, in a fuel tank, you know, I've done a lot of work. I did start my my trade is as an engineer, a mechanics working on construction machines can all be out of operation. Sorry.
No, you're okay. You carry on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you know, so in a fuel tank, you know, there's a very clear difference between the fuel, the quality of the fuel between the top and the bottom of the tank. You know, water and any solid particulates, which from the atmosphere, plus diesel bug, will actually collect at the bottom of the tank. They're around 15% heavier than the fuel, and fuel active simply is a plastic float. Which is resistant to diesel, and it's connected to a polyurethane hose, which just travels up and down in the fuel tank, and it takes the fuel from the top of the tank, or the highest point in the tank, which is going to be the cleanest fuel available, and that allows then the filters to work more efficiently in the system.
This is a bit like not drinking that nasty stuff at the bottom of a bottle of wine, really, isn't it?
Yeah, a great way of comparison, I suppose.
Yeah, well, you're the engineer and I'm the alcoholic. What can I tell you?
As you mentioned, you know, does it compare to normal filters? Well, fuel active is not really a filter. It's probably best described as a dynamic fuel pipe. You know, your water separators and filters are currently being overloaded with the contamination from the fuel tank. Because what everyone does at the moment, you take contaminated fuel out of the tank, and then it's processed with water separators and filters and actually staged filtration. And the amount of contamination that is in there, although that hasn't changed an awful lot, the latest engines need the cleanest fuel. And what Fuel Active does, by taking the cleanest fuel available in the tank, it allows then the filters to it permits them to work at the most efficient level.
I mean, just judging by Peter holding the device there, you know, is there a specific type and range of operating weight range of machines? Because that looked like quite a big piece to actually slot into perhaps a mini excavator, for example.
Yeah, I think the one Peter was holding there was off a JCB X140. So that actual plate replicates the plate that's on the bottom of the tank. So that was a bottom installation, which we install on many excavators. The majority of the installations are through the top of the tank. An installation can be carried out in less than an hour if the tank is in situ, but more complex systems may take a few hours. So we do some large mining trucks where there is some, you know, fairly serious engineering on the tank. It's still fairly straightforward, but we've been able to extend and not so much extend the filter life, but manage the filter life to the OEM standards, whereas quite often it's not actually possible to get there.
It's interesting you mentioned OEMs. I mean, what I'm looking at there, I guess, is a retrofit. So, you know, an owner or operator of a machine could buy that and install it. But are you actually speaking to OEMs about, you know, factory built installation?
Yeah, we there are a number of smaller OEMs who we currently deal with. You know, I think I don't know if I'll mention their names, but Groundhog and Hydrana Pumps. We are all currently doing some small numbers also with Atlas Copco for a specific machine. But we do talk to OEMs. The biggest problem, I think, is that OEMs don't really accept fuel contamination as being their problem. You know, they just see the end user putting contaminated fuel in the tank, which is not necessarily the case. You know, we have done some fuel sample testing where during our sort of laboratory trials, we've taken forecourt fuel and 25 to 28% of our samples have actually failed the EN 590 test.
Wow.
You know, so if that's on a forecourt, imagine what the fuel is like on a construction site.
Yeah, absolutely. As ever, we never know which way the conversations are going to go on these live shows. I've already flashed this up on the screen once. We're going to put it back up again because there does seem to be talk about algae. I didn't expect at any point on a construction plant live show to be talking about algae. What do you know about algae, Mike?
Well, algae. I have actually spent. I did spend a couple of years working in a Chevron Texaco oil terminal, and one of the you know, and it's surprising. You tend to think if you work in an industry that everyone else knows about these issues, but between your diesel and your water layer, you get what they call diesel bug, and this lives in that layer. It can be quite corrosive. It can actually eat into the fuel tank, but generally these are treated with a biocide during the storage of the fuel. But the introduction of biofuels has actually created a bigger problem because the biofuel content, which is currently at around the 7% level, that actually helps the diesel bug to actually multiply much quicker. So this is something which you'll find in your tank and can be one of the biggest causes of fuel filter blockages.
It's such an interesting thing, isn't it? You know, at one end we're trying to make fuel cleaner and we're trying to reduce emissions, and at the other end there are people like you having to solve a problem that we've just created by switching partly to biofuel. I just find that incredible, you know.
Yeah, I think in the industry, you know, the issue, you know, when I first started, you know, 40 years ago, the hire sector was a lot smaller then, but ultimately if you had a fuel filter blocked on site, you know, you might be hit with a bill. You know, in the 70s would have been maybe 10 or 15 pounds. Today, that's maybe 70 quid. But ultimately, if you get that fuel contamination on site and an injector fails or a fuel pump, it's not just the inconvenience, it's the ultimate bill, and someone has to pay that. And if that gets into a bit of a grievance conversation with the plant hire company and the operator, you know, it's not going to end well on both sides, to be honest.
No, dead right. Now, Peter, I mean, obviously you've had the privilege of actually seeing this thing up close. What did you make of it?
Well, you know what, Mark? I think what was really cool is, first of all, Fuel Active found me through one of my podcasts on HVO fuel, which was really quite good. It just shows that some people are listening to some of my podcasts.
I can't believe that.
What was great about that is it really reflected on why I wanted Mike to come on the show today, because fundamentally we're about finding the issues out there, finding the other things around red diesel, white diesel, and then discovering that there's diesel bug and discovering that happens in our industry so that we can actually bring these solutions to life and also debate what's happening. And you've seen already the comments. Algae blocking filters, algae causing the chaos. That diesel bug chaos is out there, Mark. And so when I found out all of this information, I said, listen, guys, I'm going to come down. They very kindly didn't have to get me to film myself. They provided their own videographer. But what happened is I was able to experiment. I was able to find out about this stuff. Mike's got a hidden area as well down there at the Fuel Active HQ where there's got the big, cool stuff. And they even let me bring my own watering can, Mike. So that was pretty cool. But equally, we went to see, and what you know me, Mark, I like a product, don't get me wrong, but I need to see it in action. I need to actually hear it from the horse's mouth. And we did actually go and see Gen Quick Groundhog as well. So there's going to be two really insightful videos in the series coming out over the next week or so. And that's where people can really learn more in depth about what Mike said and physically see it. And of course, my super duper watering can.
I don't even know what to say about the watering can. What does surprise me? I mean, I tend to take a high level view of the industry because I don't drive diggers for a living. I don't knock buildings down or anything like that. So I was completely unaware of the existence of a diesel bug, and yet we have people in the chat as we speak talking about that very thing. Astonishing. So, Mike, I'm sure you've got better things to be doing than sat here talking about watering cans. I know, obviously, we'll be directing people to Peter's podcast and everything else. But where can people find Fuel Active online? You know, to check out the product and find out a bit more from you guys.
Just go to fuelactive.com and they'll find plenty of information on the website. But also, if they're interested in seeing a demo, a live demo. We have some tanks which you can take around to customers. You know, we've got the product operating all, you know, everywhere from Australia, out in Asia. We do a lot of work out in Chile, in Africa, and obviously the UK as well. So just fill in the form on there if you want to, and we can send you any information.
That's absolutely fantastic. Mike, you're an absolute star. Thanks ever so much for joining us. Thanks for putting up with Peter's enthusiasm and his watering can when he came to pay you a visit. Keep us informed on how things progress for you.
I will. Thank you very much, guys.
Mike, appreciate your time. Cheers.
No problem. Cheers.
Super cool, Mark. I mean, look at the chat blowing up really there, just to prove that there's an issue out there. I didn't know how big it was. The people on the chat have had problems. So it's an issue, and let's make sure this doesn't go away. You know, we need to help people out with this because it's ridiculous, Mark, that, you know, the contamination in this day and age can have such an impact on the industry and productivity and people's jobs at the end of the day, isn't it?
Absolutely, and it's always nice when you can identify a problem and offer a potential cure as well. So that's, you know, our work here is done. Well, sort of done. Yeah. They should have given you one to take away with you. As you've probably guessed, innovation is one of the core themes of these shows. We've shown you an innovation in the field of fuel cleanliness, but we're not done yet. In fact, our next few segments are very much driven by innovation. But before we get to that, I thought you'd like a quick look at what we've got coming up in the show.
It's the excavator forklift.
This is the all-new Stage 5 compliant JCB backhoe loader.
Ted, you are an apprentice at Plantforce.
New Hitachi and an Endcon EC oil.
Plenty of reason to stick around. But first of all, earlier this week, Peter and I got together to take an up-close look at the new R-Series telehandlers from Bobcat. We'll show them to... see, we don't just put these shows together. He's got the prop standing by. We will show you the products in a second. But Peter, you've had a couple of days now to consider what we saw. What did you make of those machines?
Well, I think, you know, the one thing for me, Mark, is all about the operator. You know, what the guys have done there at Bobcat, they really have put together a machine with great visibility. You know, glass everywhere. The whole protection FOSS system has been changed, and basically that gives the operator that vision, both above and, you know, on the ground level. Rear cameras as well, but the way in which they designed the actual engine so it slopes down, therefore you've got more visibility to the right, which is a big problem. You know, these telehandlers are on tight sites all around the construction industry, not necessarily, you know, driven by really experienced people, because they're just a jump in, jump out. You know, we need bricks up there 1 minute, and the next. And then I loved the sort of tilt to the side element that was built into the overall design, so that you can push that pallet of bricks, or you've not quite got that right, and you can just tilt it there and push it into place. So without bringing that load back down and stuff like that. So the less movements on site, the better, and therefore what you've got is a product that is solving some of those standard issues that are on site, giving people that ability to feel safe in it, and also great, simple new screen. And they had a guy on in the press launch from Czechoslovakia that had actually been testing it out, And he basically said, look, it's just really easy to get into, turn on, the buttons are in the right place, and that's all because they designed it with the automotive industry in mind. And so, it's not rocket science, this. What do people do when they get in a car? What do people want to do when they get in, a telehandler and other machines? They just want everything to be where it should be and therefore be easy to use. And that's what it's all about, machines like this. Super easy to use for anybody of any level of operating ability.
100%. Well, just to back that up, let's have a look at the machines that Peter has just described so eloquently. Awesome stuff. Now, I don't know about you, Peter, but I can sense an agitation among our viewers, and we both know what that means. It's Nick Drew time, and we are sticking with the innovation theme. Ooh. Thumbs up. Here we go.
Well, hi, it's Nick Drew, and I'm here this afternoon to have a look at an innovative new product. It's the excavator forklift, and I'm here with the creator, inventor, and the builder of the thing, James Russell, who's going to tell us a bit about it.
It's a forklift attachment for a mini excavator to let the excavator lift a heavy load. Yeah. We're not in there to compete with forklifts or telehandlers or anything else. The idea of this machine is to go down narrow alleyways to get access to site that no other machine can get into. For people who take a digger to work every morning, they can now take a forklift as well. Yeah. And for that odd pallet they need to lift during the day, this is the ideal machine.
Yeah. So yeah, you're combining the two machines basically into one and making the person more versatile.
Certainly are, yes.
Yeah, it's good. So yeah, how did you come about, thinking of this invention?
Well, it came about indirectly because I was having to lift a half section of a turbine around a very tight corner. We needed to lift the two sides with a digger, and we came up with this idea to lift both ends in this type of attachment because the telehandler couldn't get into it, and fairly large for our ordinary excavators. It developed into this over 18 months.
Yeah. Okay. So where do you see this going then? How's the interest been so far?
A lot of interest. One of our videos has had over 1 million views.
Yeah.
Not that there are 1 million takers yet. It's very versatile. Any machine from 1 ton up to 3.5 ton can have this attachment. Basically, they're all very similar. You can have a different size of ram. This is a small 50mm ram. You can put in a 60mm ram and get a bit more lift out of it, which is about 1,500 kilograms. This ram here is capable of about 1,200. The heights that the machine can lift, this one here is 1.6 meters, allowing it to load a lorry. Yeah. The next size up would be 2 meters because that's the sections of steel that we get. And it can either have the 50 or the 60mm diameter rod.
Yeah, that's great, but hold on a minute. I noticed behind me we've got a different attachment, so what's going on with that one? That looks like a lifting boom.
This really is aimed at landscape gardeners who arrive on the site with a pickup or a trailer and they need to lift a bag of sand or a pallet of blocks out of the trailer. With this here they can reach in and they can lift a slung load, because you lose a lot of height with the straps on a bag.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that will lift the strap bag off a lorry.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea. Once again, making it even more versatile.
Yes.
Fantastic. So, yeah, we've seen the product. Let's see it in action.
There you go. Nick Drew in action. He does now find some interesting stuff, Mark, doesn't he?
Attachments do look a little bit Heath Robinson, but I'm fairly sure that the earliest backhoe loaders probably didn't look particularly refined either. And you just know that there's some users out there that have encountered precisely the challenges that are addressed by those two attachments. And I'm just always amazed at the ingenuity of the engineers and inventors with this industry. They see a problem, they go away into a shed and they solve it. Amazing. And you actually went along to see that in action as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. And I think what's really good, Mark, is about this is, like you say, we've got an industry that uses equipment for different things all the time. And the actual end user there, he had a small business where he's renting out the welfare units, and also basically he's got materials for landscaping. So he's using both the hook and the forklift to do his site work. Well, to move all of this stuff and do that, he'd have to have a number of machines, and it's just, not financially worthwhile to do that. And don't forget, you've got all the transport costs. If you've got other machines to take that, you've got to have another vehicle or a trailer and things like that. So, really is something that is being used out there, and the team are able to make those units up and basically solve the problems. And, and let's be honest, if you can't lift some stuff, you maybe have to put the bag, for example, out in the street to do the job, and then you have to wheelbarrow it in. And so it's just all time. And, and also you think about lifting and heavy lifting, there's a potential for you to get injured. And so there's all of these things that are really, really interesting. And of course, if you can get a mini excavator through a small gap, Mark, you can get through that gap as well with this unit. So yeah, great little product. I really liked it.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of innovative solutions to industry challenges, I've got a belter for you. We've featured FHOSS on previous shows, and I make no secret of the fact that I would gladly buy an excavator just so I could have their illuminated counterweight. But the company has innovated once again. Take a look at this. There you go, lighting the way to site safety.
Yeah.
I mean, I write about this all the time, and I've lost count of the number of times that I've had to report on cyclists being struck and killed by construction and demolition trucks, particularly here in London. And I also know that one of the key problems is cyclists trying to overtake up on the inside, as they come to a set of lights and then find that the truck is turning left. With the greatest respect to Mike and to Fuel Active, I'm already backing that one as my product for the year. Mike may have different ideas, Peter. You might have different ideas, and I'm sure our audience might. But I think that is an absolute belter.
Look. Let's just put this into perspective, Mark. We always say in construction, everybody should go home safe, and everybody deserves to do that. And the roads are for all users. And as we try and become a healthier, less, we're talking emissions all the time now. Birmingham has just launched its emission zone on Monday. Low emissions, it's really important for everyone's health. So therefore, promotion of cycling. But let's just for a moment, step back and go, hold on, it's not just for cyclists, this, because what do we see around all on the streets nowadays? Electric scooters going at some pace. Well, those end users of those scooters might not actually have gone on the road that much and been aware, as a cyclist would have, of all the issues, and they're not wearing helmets, Mark. So, having a system like this, come on, it's a simple thing, but just really, really clever, well executed. And I haven't got a FHOSS hat. I wanted an illuminated one, but I definitely...
company that is producing, is that the case?
Her dad did it, mate. Her dad invented it.
There you are. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So thanks. Now, on to other matters. If you've been watching these shows for any length of time, you will know that they were born out of adversity. Myself, Peter, Nick Drew, and my son Fred all came back from the ConExpo show in Las Vegas last year, and we're all plunged into an almost endless lockdown. And since then, I've done these shows remotely with Peter. I know Peter and Nick have done a few visits together. Myself and my son Fred met up with Nick at Mekhalak a few weeks ago. But last week, at long last, was the first time that the 4 founder members of the Construction Collective were in the same place at the same time since March last year. And what better place to host that grand reunion than at JCB's demonstration area? Now, for most of us, this was the latest in a long succession of visits to JCB. But for one of us, ironically the one that lives closest to the JCB headquarters, this was a JCB debut. And our JCB virgin is none other than Mr. Peter Haddock. Peter, you've broken your duck. What did you think of JCB?
Oh, well, what can I say? When you're greeted by a VIP visitor cap that fits perfectly on my head, Mark, with the headphones. Wow, look, I was really, really pleased to be invited, because I've obviously been working in the industry for a very long time for other players in the marketplace. Now I do what I do, I can talk about everything, which has been fantastic. And, Nigel Chell and the comms team there recognize that. And, they have helped us with our live shows as well. So we've been talking about their products, but wow, oh, wow. What an amazing demonstration facility they've got there. A beautiful area where you can sit and have fantastic JCB sausage rolls and creme brulee as well when you need to give that energy boost, as I obviously do. But what was fantastic for me, Mark, is I was able to talk about all things electric as well. Not only did they have the electric machines there, they also had the power packs there and the experts there that I could interview and really get down to, what does that do? What does that do? What does that do? How does it work? And what's different with the pedal? All of these sort of different things, and that for me was just so brilliant. But the best thing, we've got a picture of ourselves at the top of the demonstration area, looking down all those JCB machines, of us being there together. And, like you said, we were panicking a year ago in March. Are we going to get home from Vegas? Sitting in Vegas airport 4 hours early just to make sure we could get on the plane. And little did we know it would take this long to get back together. And oh my God, there's so much content going to come out of that visit. It's unbelievable. I think I'm going to have a JCB week just with myself. So fantastic. Yeah.
You can see that the creme brulee has clearly made an impression on him. It wasn't just us. We had some of our friends from the construction press in attendance as well. And we gathered to see a lot of new products that we'd heard about before, but we'd never actually seen. There were electric dumpers, electric telehandlers, a new 3.5-ton mini excavator, and a whole host of other products. Now, Peter, Nick, and Fred will all be producing content on these fantastic new machines. So be sure to follow Diggers and Dozers, Diggerman blog, Content with Media, and anybody else you care to mention on the social media channels. But there's one machine with which the JCB name is synonymous, and that is the backhoe loader. And having blown off the cobwebs and got my hard hat out of dry storage, I took the opportunity to get up close with the latest iteration of this legendary machine.
JCB and the backhoe loader are synonymous. JCB pioneered the backhoe loader in 1953, and in the years since, JCB has solidified themselves as the backhoe loader manufacturer. Last year, JCB celebrated its 75th anniversary. In the same year, the company produced its 750,000th backhoe loader. Since Joseph Cyril Bamford's vision of the Mark I in 1953, JCB has been at the forefront of the backhoe loader revolution. The much improved JCB 3 in 1961, the iconic JCB 3C in 1965, and the world-dominating JCB 3CX in 1979. And they just got better. This is the all-new Stage 5 compliant JCB backhoe loader.
That's absolutely stunning footage, mate. And what a great way to end it with Nick turning to load. And he went on a great big fast journey on that machine afterwards, didn't he? Because around the track.
He certainly did. He certainly did. Now, it's good that you should mention, Nick, actually, because our trip to JCB was notable for another reason, not just our grand reunion. There was someone had a certain birthday, didn't they?
They did indeed, and a certain perfect birthday to celebrate his perfect new self, which is a lot smaller than the one I used to know, that was in Vegas, that has been doing a great job. Not only does he look younger when he's older, he's parties like the best of them as well, Mark.
Well, just to show you exactly what we're talking about, it was actually Nick Drew's 60th birthday, and JCB, in their own inimitable style, made sure that he got to remember it.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Nick. Happy birthday to you.
Close enough. Thank you.
Fantastic, mate. And it certainly wasn't the sun he got at that point. He did go purple with embarrassment, because Nick is not one of those people to be in the limelight at all. You know, he just wants to do his job, get on with it, and do the best he can for the industry. So it's great to see him go purple.
Well, there's more. I haven't told you about this bit. There is more. Yes, he probably wanted to disappear about that point. And as you know, if you were watching the last time we had the Construction Collective together, we had a rather spooky video in which, as if by magic, Nick Drew inexplicably vanished. Well, I've got no idea how he's doing it, and I've got even less idea of why he's doing it, but he's done it again. I love the guy to death, but he's starting to freak me out.
Mate, look, look, he's going into a different realm. All that we don't understand the realm of operators truly, Mark, because we're not professional operators. But that's a different realm. He had things to do, you know.
The funny thing about that is, just before he vanished, he abided by the 3 points of contact rules to get out of the cab. I'm going to do a disappearing act, but I'm going to do it really, really safely. So well done, Nick. Now, I mentioned earlier that the core of the construction collective is 4 people, and each brings a very special set of skills. Nick is the only one of us that should be allowed to operate any equipment, although I would point out I did take the JCB electric telehandler for a spin, and I injured neither myself nor anyone else, so that's a bit of a first. If you ever watch one of these shows and think, wow, that was a good video, chances are that was Fred.
Yep.
My primary gift, as I think we've probably ascertained, is that I can talk to myself often for hours at a time. And Peter. Ah, yes, Peter. In addition to being our main presenter, our technology guru, and training evangelist, Peter is also our enthusiast in chief. And he brings all of that trademark enthusiasm to bear, and I'm looking desperately for the right bit of film to follow this up. He brings all of that to bear in this cracking new film. Check this out.
Haddock here in the northeast at Teesside Docks, the Freeport, with Robert Hall, Director of Hall Construction. Of course we're in the northeast, of course it's raining cats and dogs here, but we've got a great story to tell here because Hall Construction, Robert, have been on this project and you've invested in this beautiful new 950 Volvo because you've got an awful lot of work to do. Tell me all about it.
Yeah, that's right, Peter. We've got a fair bit of much to shift here on the Teesworks site. As you say, we've decided to purchase this brand new 950. It's quite exciting for us. It's obviously the third 950 in the country, and it's our first. So we're proud to have it. We're proud to be realising the Mayor's dream here in drafting in local workforce to build a better future for Teesside.
And what's really interesting about this better future, folks, is they didn't realise it, but when I spoke to Robert earlier, he's basically told me when they counted up the amount of ex-steel workers that are on the actual equipment here, there was over 60%, Robert, wasn't it, of workers that you've retrained to come onto the site?
That's it. There's a lot of workers that have retrained. It's great that obviously they've got back into working here, and hopefully that there'll be jobs in the future for them in the warehouses and factories that are going to be built on the Freeport.
And this is a site here that's going to be for GE, the global giant, is coming here to Teesside. And this, where we're standing right now, after you've remediated it, of course, Robert, is going to be a fantastic new factory facility. You do a lot of work yourselves in maintaining this, but you've got a strong relationship with SMTGB and how they help you. And you've got a vast Volvo fleet. Why?
We've taken on quite a lot of Volvo equipment. We found that it's great to have obviously all the same brand, but Volvo have proven particularly reliable. They've got a great service department, and we've built a real good, strong relationship with them. The equipment's second to none. You can see with this 950 excavator, it's a fantastic little thing.
And the other thing about this is, you know, you've got really harsh environments. You're having to rip up huge amounts of concrete, and also some big stuff has to be moved, doesn't it? So that's why you had to go up.
We've actually had MST build a bespoke bucket for us, so which you can see here. Just because the slag is that abrasive, it's over 3 tonnes to the cube. It's wrecking all the ground penetrating tools that we've got. So we've had to go that little bit further with that little bit extra Haddocks to make sure we can protect the equipment. I hope we can get some extra productivity with this new excavator.
Yeah, well, it's certainly going to be productive because there's a deadline here on site. They've got to move really quickly here because they've got to get this factory built, and the Freeport is going to create tens of thousands of jobs. So really, Robert, it's a great story. We're going to keep following this story with you guys, and it's great to have you here, even though it is pouring with rain.
Yeah, that's great, Peter. I look forward to having you back.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I know it was pouring with rain, Peter, and the northeast, that's what it does there, but that looked like an absolutely epic site.
Yes, Mark, and it was one of the things I wanted to do for my Who's Investing slot, the regular slot that's sponsored by Ritchie Brothers on the show, is actually bring it to life by going and talking to someone that is invested a huge amount of money in fleet and in people. You mentioned there, you know, talking about jobs for the steel workers that used to be on the site, and I didn't even realize he counted up over 60% of the operators retrained to create that site. GE Renewables, massive blade center for wind turbines that was actually taken into the UK because of the free port status. So they were going to extend another factory in Europe, didn't do it. Came there, and the guys at Hall Construction have got to work very, very hard, very, very quickly, because there's a deadline to build that factory, because they've got huge orders for wind turbines. It's a fantastic story, really is. And that longevity of the relationship with SMTGB and Volvo is really paying off for the guys there.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stood out from me from that was was it April would have been the budget where Rishi Sunak announced the Freeport idea. And we've already got earth being moved. You know, it was literally all guns blazing and all hands to the pumps. Fantastic turnaround, incredible stuff.
Yeah, and the site is the biggest site of its type in Europe, and it's only the second deepest port in the UK. So what you're talking about is the capability to bring in and take out a lot of stuff. Basically, you know, so whether it's manufacturing, whether it's storage facilities, whatever it is. And, you know, you've got to really look at how that's being put together. The mayor, I also interviewed, you can find that interview on my LinkedIn or YouTube channel, Facebook. Ben Houchin, what a guy. He's literally brought that investment in, is spurring on it. And I interviewed him at 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning, when he just got re-elected. That's like what he wants to do. That's the guy, you know, brilliant.
Superb. Just while we're talking amongst ourselves, Heather's been back on, and I think she's given us a web address to actually find those products. I'm going to leave that up there for just a second while we go through the next point. And that next point is the fact that I mentioned the fact that there are 4 members of the Construction Collective, but that is only partly true, because in our attempt to appeal to the youth market, we have another member who floats in and out when he's not too busy being a teenager, and that 5th member is none other than Lucas Haddock. Good evening, Lucas.
Hello, everyone. I know some of you may have seen me before, so welcome to seeing me again. And for anyone who's new, my name's Lucas Haddock. I'm part of the Construction Collective every so often when I do new video shoots with my dad, Peter Haddock.
And you've been out and about this time with Endcon, haven't you?
Yep, I've been out and about with Endcon this time to visit a guy called Barry, who's been a very loyal customer to Endcon for multiple years. He recently just got a new Endcon EC oil on his Hitachi digger.
Fantastic excavator. Stuff. Superb stuff. Well, I tell you what, rather than talking about it, let's take a look and see what you got up to.
Today I'm here with Barry, who's got himself a new Hitachi and an Endcon EC oil. What do you think of people that are wanting to make an investment like this but are thinking that it might be too much and won't get the money back?
It's a no-brainer. You know, for what you can do with this machine with the Endcon on there, it saves so much time. And like I say, for wear and tear on a machine, it cuts out a heck of a lot of wear.
So, Barry, how long have you been with Endcon for, and why did you choose them?
I've been with Endcon now since 2002. We looked at them at one of the plant shows. We showed an interest. The salesman came out to me and he talked me into putting one on there, and his words were, "You have it on there for a month. If you don't like it, we'll take it back. If you do, then we'll do a deal." Directly they put it on the machine. I said, okay, it'll stay there. We've done the deal, and we've been with them ever since.
So Barry, what is so much better about the EC oil than the old attachment from Endcon?
It saves you having to get out the cab all the time to stick on pipes. and whatever, and also cuts down on your oil loss and basically cuts down on time.
And do you think with an Endcon attachment you have a better advantage on getting work done faster and with ease?
Definitely. It's like I say, it's no brainer. You can change from one piece of equipment to another within minutes as such, and you're up and running and you're away.
Yeah, so Barry, why did you choose to use a Hitachi with your Endcon EC oil?
There's no question, Hitachi, best machine going.
Yep, and that will be all for today. Hopefully we'll be seeing you again soon, and that will end it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cracking job, Lucas. Do you know what I really like about this stuff? I realise he's your son, Peter, and that's why he's doing this. But you've got the likes of Ritchie Brothers have allowed him to do stuff. You've got Dig Bits and obviously now Engcon as well. But also the operators. That operator. He looks like he's been around for a while. He could have said, "I don't want to be interviewed by a teenager," but he was all for it. Fair play, and I think you did a cracking job on that, Lucas. Well done, mate.
Yeah, because recently I was allowed for the first time to go to Ritchie Brothers and do some drone filming for some filler footage. But soon we will be going again, and I will be interviewing maybe Rupert.
Fantastic stuff. Well, we've got another show coming up in 4 weeks' time. Make sure you do it in time for that, because we'll have a slot.
We'll try my best.
Fantastic stuff. Great to see you again, Lucas. Take care, mate.
Thank you, Mark. Bye.
Bye.
Does you proud, mate, doesn't he?
Well, you know what, Mark? I think what's really interesting about that is, he just goes and asks the questions himself, and what we've really got to understand about this industry is what's the type of questions that people of his age want to ask and want to get answered. Because, at the end of the day, he's done his homework. He looked onto the website, looked at the machines, and he's gone, why have you bought this machine? Why have you done that? Because you need to know this. And if you're a manufacturer, you need to know how are you going to sell these machines to the next generation that are coming through.
You see, that's what's different about Lucas and me at that age. If that had been me, I'd have asked him how much money you made and how much holiday you got. That would have been my primary focus. I wouldn't have been bothered about anything else. Right, we are almost at the end of the show, which, as ever, will probably overrun the hour mark because brevity is not our strong point. It's one that manages to combine several of Peter's passions, actually, apprenticeships and training and technology. So, Peter, while I'm finding the right clip, which I have found now, why don't you introduce what you had to do with young Ted?
Right. So, for me, I really want to promote the industry to the younger generation, and I want to support them in doing that. But I also want to find out, just like we mentioned with Lucas there, what makes them tick? What makes somebody want to come into this industry? And when they're in it, what can we do to keep them in it, to train them? And also, what can we do to make sure that they are promoters of the industry and, that they can actually help us get more people in the industry? Because at the end of the day, Mark, we're an aging population. We have these big problems, and I harp on it over and over again. You used to be able to go and sit on your dad's digger, for example, and learn how to be a digger operator. You talk to all the operators that have been in the game for a long, long time, including Nick Drew, and that's the kind of thing and experience they had. And, you go, oh, lads, we need somebody to go on the excavator, put the shovel down, have a go. We can't do that in this day and age for all of the right reasons with health and safety and things like that. And, so we need to understand how to bring new people in. And we've talked simulators before, we've talked about training, and we've seen the wonderful apprentices that the operator skills hub for Flannery. But this is a business that has gone and said, right, we need operators, we need to bring young people in. Plantforce is that business. And basically they said, well, actually, we should give them a go on the best equipment as well. So see how they work with it. And there you go. Here's Ted.
Hi, I'm Peter Haddock and I'm here in Wales with Ted Powell. Ted, you are an apprentice at Plantforce.
Yep.
Well, not just any apprentice, you've been fast-tracked into this machine, Leica Geosystems semi-automatics from Kobelco, the SK210. First of all, tell me about the fast-track program. What's happened with that?
So I started out in the yard at Plantforce. I started out just sweeping, cleaning out machines, doing all the general sort of tidying work. And then they offered me an apprenticeship scheme to go become an operator. So I went to Apple Construction Training Centre in Banbury, where I did 2 weeks driving excavators and ADTs. So I got both tickets done and was then put straight onto HS2 Works to do archaeology.
HS2 Archaeology Works, that's when the grading really happened, isn't it? Because, again, millimetre takeoff, so they could do the architectural digs there, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was really where I sort of honed like the ability to have control the machine and get like a nice smooth finish on stuff, because all they're looking for is like to find nice features and then be able to take a nice photo afterwards, so get everything looking tidy.
The first question I asked you earlier was, how do you find the technology, and how is it for young people like yourself using touch screens, joysticks and stuff? So tell me about that experience.
It's not intimidating at all for someone my age. It's very similar to everything that we sort of grow up with nowadays, which is like iPads, computers and stuff. And I was saying earlier, it's very similar to the sort of the computers and like the software we have at school to do IT with.
Yeah.
When we're building like designs and stuff in design class, that's literally the same as like the Leica GPS. I think it's very easy to use in that sort of sense, because it's literally looks the same as the models that you get in school.
And you're working off a model here, folks, a model that's been designed for this site. However, I was just talking to the site management before you came along today, Ted, and they're actually saying, well, we are wanting to change the buns sometimes when we've got different takeoff, and Ted's been programming his own buns in to take off that extra. Tell me about that. I mean, that's like higher level stuff right there, Ted, isn't it?
I mean, it sounds like it's high level, it sounds intimidating, but if you, I mean, I looked up, there's a YouTube videos.
Yeah.
So Leica do their own YouTube videos and you look them up and then it tells you exactly what to do. So you choose, program your own model, and then you go put the bucket down at one end and put it down at the other end, and then you can do a cross section and then it will make a road for you, and then you can change the height and like the gradient and stuff like that. So yeah, I found it quite easy to get used to because of the YouTube videos.
And the guys there, and this is no whatever like, the guys are saying, well, look, we didn't have to bring in the engineer to do that work. So not only have you learnt that off YouTube, like most young lads would be looking at on site, you've actually then gone into the tablet and used the intuitive technology in there to do that. So that's really showing us, Ted, how young people like yourself can get to grips with this technology. Of course, then it comes to you getting the opportunities on site.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you know what? He looks like a star of the future, does Ted? What a smart young guy.
You know, I think Mark, what's really interesting about meeting Ted is, one, that he, you know, was happy to come on camera for starters. You know, that's a big deal for young people, and he was even happier to talk about, you know, his experience. And I think, you know, until we get people like Ted doing that, and until we get this out to a wider audience, you know, people still are gonna think that being a plant operator is dead boring. You have to sit there waiting around in the rain and it's horrible and the equipment's, you know, horrible to sit in. That was the most expensive Kobelco SK210 you're likely to see, because it was completely kitted out, and you know, it's got a tilt rotator on it, it's got all of the technology on it, got semi-automatics on it, and it's brand new. You know, this is something where Plantforce have taken a lot of effort to actually put this whole package together, and they're putting it on, you know, a prestigious site with a young operator. And what we went into with 2 videos on this project, Mark, is the actual Blue Dot MD was willing to give Ted a chance. Now that's the difference. You know, we hear out there, it's like, oh, you operate, you're not fast enough, get off the job. Well, Ted's not going to be fast enough. You know, there was a mentor in using the same technology, but in a dozer that was there, and that was able to help him as well. if you don't give them a chance, you're never going to get the next generation coming through. And if all you ever do is badger and give operators a hard time, guess what? They're not going to come back. You know, they might not even come back or stay in the industry.
You're absolutely right. Now, that kind of concludes the main part of the show, but two things, well, probably more than two, but first of all, I can see that Mike James from Fuel Active has been hanging around in the green room. And I'm not going to shock him too much. Mike, I can see that you're paying attention. I'm going to come back to you in a second. I have another question. But before we do that, Peter's already modelled it, but I've got one of these JCB VIP Visitor Hats as well. I don't know if you can see that very clearly. And I'm going to give mine away. Very, very straightforward. One question only, and it's fastest finger first. As some of you may be aware, I do a daily news show called The Breakfast Show here on YouTube and various other platforms as well. I've done quite a few of these. As I say, it is a daily show. Today, what was the number of the show? And the first person that gets the number of today's show gets the hat. Now, Mike, you've had a chance to prepare.
6.
One of the things that occurred to me when you went out of the stream there was we were talking about algae and diesel bug and all that kind of thing, and we're basically talking about an organic thing there, aren't we? So regardless of how much you filter, you're never going to get rid of that entirely, are you? Is there anything else that can be done to eradicate that fully?
No, so the diesel bug, yeah, as you say, it's if you look at fuel contamination at the big picture, you know, it's how you manage the problem. So obviously taking the cleanest fuel out will allow the machine to work without any breakdowns, but you then still have to drain that contamination out of the tank at some point. So that should be done during your sort of maintenance periods. You know, I would recommend at least cleaning the tank once a year. You know, rental companies would obviously have some sort of procedure for emptying and cleaning tanks, you know, when they come off hire, although in practice that doesn't always happen. But ultimately, you can also get biocides, which you can add into the fuel, which will kill the bug. But obviously that will then get used, and it's a treatment that you have to use on a regular basis. There are lots of things you can do. If you've got storage tanks, there's fuel polishing, etc. But you know, it's just one solution for a problem that's there, and ultimately the machine, which is on site, which is the one that's doing all the work and earning you money, is the one you want to keep going.
No, absolutely. The other thing that occurred to me, and I probably should have asked this at the beginning, I'm very good at asking retrospective questions. I used to do a lot of work with Pertec talking about hydraulics and hydraulic contamination. And obviously one of the main causes of hydraulic contamination is you're changing a hose, it gets dragged in the dirt, you know, they couple it up, and sure enough, that dirt then gets sucked into the system and it starts to clog things up. What are the main things contaminating fuel?
Well, water's probably the most common. You know, it's you know, your fuel tanks. You know, as your fuel level is dropping in the tank, you will be drawing in the surrounding atmosphere. You know, depending on what the environmental conditions at the time, but you will always get some moisture going into the tank. And if the tank is not filled up at the end of the shift, that dead airspace, you will get condensation in that tank overnight, and that will build up. And then you add to poor housekeeping and storage of fuel on site. You know, the water being another liquid is the biggest problem, because your water separators are not going to be 100% efficient. You know, unless they're maintained regularly. Water is the problem where it gets through into the injectors, damages the injectors, because your diesel fuel is not just a fuel, it's a lubricant and a cooling medium. It's constantly being circulated through the systems. Your modern diesel engines operate at very high pressure, so they need cooling and lubricating with the cleanest fuel possible. And any water in that fuel will cause long-term damage, and it can be very expensive.
Yeah, and you also mentioned the fact that, you know, these stage 5 engines, they're working to such tight tolerances now. that they are more susceptible. So, you know, we as I said to you before, we've gained on in one hand and potentially lost out with the other, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, engines, you know, go back 30 years and you get some contamination. It would affect the atomization of the fuel. The engines might be difficult to start, or they might smoke a bit, but ultimately they could quite often still run. You know, modern electronic injectors are much more susceptible to the contamination problem, and they will just stop working. And you know, we're starting to see a trend also in the road haulage sector where the fuel contamination is affecting trucks, because then you've gone up another level into Euro 6, and obviously they work at higher pressures again, and obviously with the bigger engines there's be quite high fuel flow on them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, Mike, I'm sorry to drop you on that, but I can see you lurking in the background there, and I did have more questions, so I thought rather than phoning you tomorrow, I'd get it straight from the horse's mouth. But I'm going to let you get back to your evening now.
Thanks, Mike. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you, guys.
Right, that just about wraps up another one, Peter.
Yes.
Any final thoughts?
I mean, look, Mark, my final thought for today is, look, we've got a lot of exciting things on the show here. We've got to start getting this exciting stuff out there as much as we can, sharing it around, sharing with your friends, your family, and people like that. I just spoke to one of the guys that is doing my roof. I had a leak on the garage roof, unfortunately, and we were talking about diggers. He's saying I'm getting too old to do this job, but he used to actually do wheel loaders and 360s. I literally texted some of my friends in the industry and the big players that are out there, you know, to say, I know you need people. Can you help this guy? You know, and I see it. Yeah, I saw it today, this morning. Flannery Plant Hire, we need operators. Lynch Plant Hire, we need operators. Yeah, they're saying we've got availability. You know, we've got a huge boom area. They've just said they're going to go to Leeds with HS2. That's 20 plus years worth of work and earthworks. And it's boom time as we are now. And I mean, I went to Northampton the other day. My God, you drive around Northampton, there is shed after shed after shed, thousands of pieces of equipment everywhere, and the best quality equipment, because they've got to get it up and out there, you know, ready. It's not just the standard stuff of like highways and infrastructure and things. We've got to dig up the roads with all the cable and the fibre. We've got Virgin Media and O2 joining together saying they're going to spend another £10 billion. You've got BT saying to people, can somebody partner with us because we want to spend £5 billion on this network alone. There's absolutely massive amounts of work out there, and there's people that have got the aptitude and the potential to have a great career in this industry. We just need to shout about it, share all the stuff like we're doing tonight, and get the word out there, get the people contacting people to get jobs. And you know, it's super exciting to be in the industry at the moment, Mark. You know, it really, really is. Amazing equipment, innovations, people, technology, solutions, and you know, fun. Yeah, and that's the whole point. And I hope we brought some of that fun tonight.
No, I quite agree. And one of the things that really struck me, as I say, we went up to JCB the other day, and two things. First of all, I spoke to our friend Neil Edwards at the Builders Conference the other day. The construction industry in May logged another £6.2 billion. So, you know, 10% up on the previous month, well ahead of the 4 billion usual benchmark. But because I've been off the road for, by and large, for a year, that trip from here to JCB, the number of new warehouses that are either there that have appeared while I've been away or that are being built at the moment, there is endless work. And that 6.2 billion, you know, Neil Edwards always points it out, that's work that will come to fruition around about September, October time, you know, which is, let's face it, when a lot of people are, you know, they've left school or left college or left university, they are ripe and ready to go. There's work to be had out there, isn't there?
Yeah, and you just need the right attitude in this industry, Mark. You have to teach, you have to be taught all of the things and the best practices and all the rest of that. Of course you do, and you have to be taught how to be safe. But all you need in construction, and particularly in this part of the sector, is the right attitude, the right work ethic, and basically you could have a job where you sit in a piece of equipment that is more expensive than the most expensive car you're ever likely to buy. you know, full of the latest technology, and, you know, something where you are creating things. We are not just churning out the same thing over and over again, like car factories and manufacturing. We're not doing that. Every site we go to is different weather conditions, different, you know, different types of soil or materials that you're shifting, and you are changing the landscape so that actually people can have better lives, and that we can actually cope with the scenario that we're in at the moment and the changing in habits, and that we can actually live under a roof like we're talking from tonight.
Dead right. And to be honest, that's precisely why we're doing this. You know, I'm a magazine journalist, probably always will be, but that's not necessarily where people are hanging out. That's why we've worked so hard to build as big an audience as we have. That's why we work here on Facebook and on Instagram and on YouTube, because that's where the next generation of Ted is a prime example. Ted has basically taught himself part of the Leica system on YouTube.
Yeah,
that's not a fluke, you know, and he couldn't have got that. And I've got huge amounts of respect for Earth Movers magazine and for Nick's Diggerman blog, for the new Awesome Earth Movers magazine. Do a fantastic job. But you wouldn't be able to learn about how to operate the Leica Geosystems technology in a magazine. You can on YouTube, and that's the difference. And that's why we're there. That's why we're doing this kind of thing.
Yeah, I think, Mark, that what's really interesting is it's all about storytelling, no matter what platform you're on. Obviously, I write for Earth Movers and other magazines as well. And what I know from those magazines, and it continues to happen, is people are spending quality time reading those magazines and making commercial decisions and buying equipment off the back of that. Equally, they're doing and jumping into shows like this and learning new things and buying equipment. We've just got to be everywhere, and we've got to provide content that's consumable, it's right, it's fit for purpose, and it's not boring. You know?
That's the point where I should just stop the show. That's the quote of the day.
You know what I mean? Just young people will switch off unless they are entertained and unless they know what's going on. And also, I do believe, and it's another mantra of mine, we have to start talking about money and careers with young people, because if they understand there's a career and they're going to make money and they're going to afford the things they want in life by joining this industry, then they're going to think about joining.
100%. That just about wraps up the show. It appears that nobody had the right answer or didn't want the hat. It's still there. You've probably got about another 60 seconds. What was the number of the last breakfast show? If you get in time, you can have the hat. One final bit of explanation from me. The glasses, if you watch it often enough, you'll know I normally wear those. I was up at 4:22 this morning and I look terrible behind. I don't look that great with the glasses on. I look even worse with them off. So yeah, that's just to cover up the wear and tear. So they may or may not be staying. They've made it very hard to read the running order, I have to say. So not entirely sure I'm going to be able to stick with it.
I can read it in the reflection, Mark. Don't worry.
Well, maybe we'll just. Well, I think we've got two options. We either get you to do it all in the reflection, or we just hand the whole thing over to Lucas and Fred and let them deal with it.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely no problem at all. But yeah, another great show. It's great to be back on site. It really is fun to see all the content that's going to be coming out, especially from our joint visit to the Jcb facility. You know, what's really cool about that as well is they've recognized all the hard work myself and you and Nick have done, and they put us in our own little group, the Construction Collective group. First time that's ever happened. It hopefully won't be the last.
Yeah, I couldn't tell whether they were doing that because they recognised the Construction Collective or they just thought we didn't play well with others. I couldn't really tell. I think that's just me.
I'm a collaborator through and through, Mark.
You certainly are. Right, Peter, I'm going to let you get back to your collaborative life. I'm going to call it a day. That's us signing off. It's been an absolutely fantastic show. Really appreciate you all being here. Peter, thanks to you. Thanks, Mike, who is bizarrely... Mike, go home. Your work here is done. You can go home. Thanks to everyone else that contributed, to Fred and to Nick, to Lucas, everybody else that helped us bring this show together. And I have one final thing to say. I've already said it once, but I didn't get to see her today. Happy birthday, Mum. I'll see you all very soon.
Great stuff. Ta-da.